35,000 decisions today. That is the scientific estimate for how many decisions your brain makes in a single day. You are aware of maybe 50, which means right now, as you watch this, your nervous system is running processes you have zero access to, regulating your heart rate, adjusting your posture, filtering the sound of your own breathing out of your conscious awareness. The question is not whether your nervous system is remarkable. The question is why, when it fails, it takes everything with it, and it fails more often than most people realize. Let me show you how it works. Then I will show you what breaks it. Your nervous system has two divisions. The central nervous system, brain and spinal cord. This is command. The peripheral nervous system. Every nerve outside of that, this is the network. But here is what most explanations miss. These are not separate systems. They are one continuous electrical network. 86 billion neurons, each one connected to thousands of others. The total number of synaptic connections in one human brain is estimated at 100 trillion. For context, that is more connections than there are stars in 1,000 Milky Way galaxies. And every single one of them fires using the same basic mechanism, which is where it gets genuinely interesting. The neuron. Everything your nervous system does comes down to this: a cell body at the center, dendrites branching outward. These receive incoming signals. An axon extending away. This transmits the signal onward. Now, here is what nobody talks about. The axon is wrapped in myelin, a fatty sheath that coats the axon like insulation on a wire. And this insulation is not just for protection, it changes the physics of how signals travel. Without myelin, signals crawl along the entire axon surface, slow, inefficient. With myelin, signals jump between gaps called nodes of Ranvier. Saltatory conduction, from a Latin word saltare, to leap. Your nerve signals do not travel continuously, they jump, and because of that, signals in myelinated nerves travel at 120 meters per second, the length of a football field, every second. Now you know that. Here is why it matters. Multiple sclerosis is a disease where the immune system attacks myelin, not the neuron, the insulation around it. The signal does not stop. It slows, it degrades, it arrives distorted. That is why MS causes symptoms that seem unrelated. Vision problems, muscle weakness, coordination loss, same mechanism, different location, different symptom, but we are getting ahead of ourselves. First, how does the signal actually work? Action potential. This is the electrical signal that carries information through your nervous system, and it is nothing like the electricity in your walls. Your neurons do not carry a continuous current. They fire in pulses, all or nothing. Here is how. At rest, a neuron maintains a negative charge inside relative to outside. Resting potential, minus 70 millivolts. When a stimulus arrives, sodium channels open. Sodium rushes in, the inside becomes positive. Depolarization, this triggers the next section of the axon to do the same thing. And the next, a wave of the electrical change traveling down the axon. Then, potassium channels open. Potassium rushes out. Charge returns to negative. Repolarization. The whole process takes about 1 millisecond, 1,000th of a second. Your nervous system can fire up to 1,000 times per second in a single neuron. Now multiply that by 86 billion neurons. This is happening right now, in your body, while you watch this. But the signal reaching the end of the axon is only half the story. Because neurons do not touch, there is a gap between them. And crossing that gap is where the synapse, a space of approximately 20 nanometers between one neuron and the next. When the action potential reaches the axon terminal, vesicles release neurotransmitters into this gap. These chemicals cross the synapse and bind to receptors on the next neuron. And depending on which neurotransmitter, The effect is completely different. Glutamate, excitatory, increases likelihood the next neuron fires. GABA, inhibitory, decreases likelihood. This is your brain's braking system. Dopamine, reward, and motivation, not pleasure itself, the anticipation of it. This is why you keep scrolling, keep checking, keep wanting the next thing. Serotonin, mood regulation, sleep, appetite, social behavior. Every SSRI antidepressant ever made works by keeping serotonin in the synapse longer. And here is something that reframes how most people think about mental illness: depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. These are not character failures, they are synaptic chemistry problems, measurable, biological, as real as a broken bone. The stigma around them exists because you cannot see the synapse fail, but it fails, and the consequences are as serious as any other organ failure. Now, all of this is the voluntary system, what you can consciously control. But there is another system running underneath it, one you have almost no access to. The autonomic nervous system, two divisions, working in opposition, maintaining your survival: sympathetic, fight or flight, threat detected, heart rate increases, blood diverted to muscles, digestion pauses, pupils dilate, adrenaline released. All of this happens before you consciously register the threat. Your body reacts first. You understand why later. Parasympathetic, rest and digest. Threat cleared, heart rate slows, digestion resumes, energy conserved. These two systems run continuously, in balance. And here's what makes this clinically significant. Chronic stress keeps the sympathetic system permanently activated, digestion chronically impaired, immune function chronically suppressed, cardiovascular strain chronic. The body was designed for short, intense stress, predator, crisis, emergency, not 8 hours of email, not 3 years of financial pressure, not a global pandemic. The nervous system running sympathetic activation for years is like running a car engine at full throttle indefinitely. Something breaks, and usually what breaks is exactly what we are about to discuss. 3 diseases, 3 different ways the nervous system fails, each one revealing something about how it works when it is intact. First, multiple sclerosis. The immune system attacks myelin, the insulation around axons. Signals that once jumped at 120 meters per second now crawl or fail entirely. Symptoms depend entirely on which axons are demyelinated: vision, movement, sensation, bladder function, cognition. No two MS patients present identically because the nervous system is the same, but the location of damage varies. Second, Parkinson's disease, a cluster of neurons deep in the brain, the substantia nigra. These neurons produce dopamine, specifically dopamine for the motor control system. In Parkinson's, these neurons die progressively. Dopamine falls, motor signals lose precision, tremor, rigidity, slowness. The drug L-DOPA replaces the missing dopamine. It works remarkably well until it does not, because it treats the symptom, not the cause. Third, Alzheimer's disease. Synaptic connections lost. Proteins, amyloid and tau, accumulate in patterns that disrupt neural communication. Memory does not disappear randomly. It disappears in the reverse order it was formed. Recent memories first, distant memories last. A patient who cannot remember yesterday can often remember their childhood in detail, because those older connections are stronger, more redundant, built over decades. This is not coincidence. It is the architecture of how memory works. Your nervous system processes 11 million bits of information per second. You are consciously aware of approximately 50. Everything else, every heartbeat, every breath, every postural adjustment, every background sound filtered out, is handled without you. The system that does this is built from the same basic unit, the neuron, firing impulses, crossing synapses, building circuits over a lifetime, and when it works, you do not notice it. You only notice when it does not. All sources in the description: Nature Reviews, Neuroscience, Neuron Journal, Cell Press, every claim referenced. One question before you go. Your autonomic nervous system runs without your input: heart rate, digestion, immune function, but elite meditators can demonstrably influence these through sustained practice, which raises a question medicine has not fully answered. How much of your nervous system is actually outside your control? Tell us in the comments. Next, we look at what happens when the immune system decides the nervous system is the enemy. Multiple sclerosis. In detail. Case 0. Every mystery begins somewhere.